Disney has been a huge part of people's childhood basically since the company was founded. So long ago. It's had a mixed history, producing everything from cinematic masterpieces to political shorts and even educational videos regarding puberty. But there is one thing that the company is known for above all else. That being the animated movie musicals, largely based on fairy tales and featuring women coming up against various obstacles and finding their happy ending. Disney was known for stunning visuals, grand music that lasts the test of time no matter what genre you typically enjoy, and stories that shared important messages with audiences worldwide. Be yourself. Be kind. Don't be afraid to go against the grain. Be smart. Be compassionate. Be strong and gentle. You don't have to fit into someone else's expectations of what you should be. The smallest act of kindness can create big changes. In general, be a good person. Knowing what the company used to be like is what makes it all the more heartbreaking now to see what it's become. Nothing but soulless cash grab sequels and remakes banking on people's nostalgia to get backsides into seats. The few movies being made that aren't remakes get almost no advertising whatsoever. I hadn't even heard of Elio until I heard about how badly it was doing after its release. As if Disney wants them to die so it can point to them and say, see? Nobody wants anything new. Let's do 20 more remakes that completely kill the point of the original story and suck out everything that made the animated version likable, because clearly no one likes animation and something is only good if it's live action and CG. People are sick of remakes. But as long as people buy tickets to go see it, whether they're hate-watching or genuinely curious, Disney doesn't care. Money is money, and as long as they make money with the remakes, that's what they're going to keep doing. It doesn't help that their animated offerings haven't been great either. Even Pixar, which used to be the darling of the animation world, hasn't been doing so well, and their offerings have been mid-tier at best. They're forgettable, animated in that same bean-mouth CalArt style that people are also getting incredibly sick of, and generally just don't hold a candle to the movies they used to produce as far as writing, music, or overall design. Mainstream cinema, live action and otherwise, is in a creative slump, leaving gaps that the indie animation industry is quickly rising to fill. Critics and companies can say that people don't like animation as much as they want, but the numbers prove otherwise, including among adults. Animation allows for expression, creativity, and beauty far beyond what live action can convey. When a character in an animated movie has some little quirk, like a nervous fidgeting of their fingers or the way they sway a little when they stand, that isn't just something the actor does that was captured on film. Every movement, every detail is something that someone decided to put there. Hiccup nervously fidgeting with his fingers when meeting a powerful opponent wasn't just something that happened to be there. The animators put that detail there, and most would completely miss it. But they put it there anyway to convey that though Hiccup was putting on a brave face, his nerves are getting to him. A quick glance, a small nudge, all of these movements that just sort of happen in live action are deliberate in animation. Disney has made it very clear that they consider their legacy incredibly important. At least they say they do. And celebrate anniversaries as giant events like the Independence Day of their own nation. With how much emphasis they put on their history, you'd think they'd put a little bit more effort into their grand Centennial film, the big one, hitting the triple digits, a landmark event that won't ever come around again. However, some people have suggested that the movie was written by AI, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if it was. Rather than the cinematic score that Disney movies are known for, they hired pop writers to do the songs, leaving a soundtrack that sounds less iconic and more like that forgettable garbage that plays on the radio nonstop for a week, and then the world collectively seems to forget ever existed at all. They used CG animation that they attempted to make look like hand-drawn, which just didn't work very well. Everything just kind of fades into each other and the background. It doesn't have a distinct style like the movies of Disney's Golden Age did. If you looked at the background or any of the characters from those movies, you could pretty easily tell by the difference in style what movie they were from. Oh, those swirling patterns in that particular gold-tinted color scheme? That's Hercules. The soft, rounded watercolor with everything having a puffed-up look? That's Lilo and Stitch. These sharply defined shapes with lots of red and gold? That's Mulan. Each movie had a distinct look. You couldn't just grab a character from one and drop it into another movie without retooling their design a bit to make them fit in. They just stand out way too much. Wish doesn't have its own distinct style, musically or visually. The characters, if you can even call them that, are bland, forgettable cookie-cutter copies that are only designed to check off tropes. Tropes are all well and good if you do something interesting with them, but they don't even try. Disney used to take chances, risky gambles that sometimes paid off and sometimes didn't, but were at least unique enough to be memorable. Now it seems like all they do is rehash the same thing they've already done and stick as close to a safe formula as possible, with the only changes being absolutely miserable, terrible choices that tend to completely botch whatever message their movie is trying to shove down your throat. Speaking of messages, what is the message of Wish? Well, it seems like what they're going for is that you shouldn't put your faith in someone or something else to come along and make your dreams come true for you, and you should instead fight for them yourself. All well and good, except that's not what the characters do. Let's just recap the movie really quick here, shall we? The film centers around Asha, a teenage girl who is a firm copy and paste of Anna and Rapunzel's adorkable character model, and she's excited to try out to be the king's apprentice. She lives on an island that is maintained and protected by King Magnifico, a powerful magician who built the island as a safe haven for anyone and everyone after his old home was torn apart by war. The king is, by all accounts, kind and giving, making sure everyone living there has everything they need to live comfortable lives, and even grants someone their greatest wish once a month. The only catch, which the movie treats like it's something horrific and dastardly, is that he doesn't grant every wish. Instead, when the people living on the island turn 18, they can choose to give him their wish in the hopes that he'll grant it someday. This makes them forget what it was, which Magnifico sees as a good thing, because if they can't remember what their wish is, they won't be constantly longing for something they can't have, since most of the wishes are things that they'd never be able to accomplish without magical intervention, like flying or having a giant... Well, they go the family-friendly route with this one, but I'm pretty sure that's not the interpretation a teenage boy would have for that particular wish. Magnifico at first seems quite taken with Asha, so much so that he shows her the wishes and explains to her how he decides which ones to grant. See, he goes through every single wish very carefully and chooses to grant ones that are safe and will benefit everyone. Things like someone wanting to make beautiful clothes, or to be a great healer of the sick, or to grow delicious fruit and vegetables to feed their people. The wishes he doesn't grant are ones that are selfish, dangerous, or so vague that they could mean anything. And that includes Asha's grandfather's wish, which was apparently to inspire people. As Magnifico points out, that could mean just about anything. Inspire them to do what? Sure, it could be to inspire them to be creative or to be better people, but it could also inspire violence, selfishness, or a lot of other bad things. We see a couple other wishes, like this guy who seems to be conquering something. What is he conquering? Possibly an underdeveloped nation that will get taken over and driven to the brink of extinction, if not beyond it? A rival island? Rosas itself? Someone who wants to fly? It could be relatively harmless, but also very impractical and not really worth granting when up against wishes that can genuinely help the island become a better place to live. The way Magnifico grants the wishes, from one we do see him grant, seems honestly pretty great as well. When he grants the wish of this woman to make beautiful clothes, he doesn't just give her the ability to poof the clothes into existence. He gives her a set of enchanted scissors that will help her. She still has to put in some effort and creativity of her own to create the clothes. They just don't happen on their own. I think that's a great way for him to grant the wishes. They're not getting it entirely handed to them, but they are getting something that helps them along the way and gives that push that gets them through the obstacles that may stop them from achieving it. Asha gets mad because she has barely spoken to the king and is already asking him favors, which he is clearly very disappointed by in the way that someone who has been used over and over and was hoping that just this once, maybe he would when he sees his hopes crumble instantly. And she's mad that her grandfather's wish won't be granted, which is why she wanted to be his apprentice at all. Basically, Asha is a spoiled brat who was born and raised in paradise and has no idea what it's like to actually have to earn something. And she's now angry that she's not being given what she wants and is being told that she can't have something for the first time ever. Asha was born and raised on Rosas. She has never had to deal with the outside world and its troubles. It seems like housing and basic necessities are totally free on Rosas, and most people's jobs and duties are basically just things they do for luxuries or as hobbies to make things run smoother. She's never had to struggle a day in her life, never had to worry about her home being taken from her, about losing the ones she cares about, even if her father did pass away. Magnifico, on the other hand, grew up in war-torn hellscapes, watching everyone and everything he cared about being destroyed. The guy's got some pretty obvious PTSD, and it seems like no one, not even his own wife, is really taking the time to make sure he's okay. But he pushes aside all his own worries to try and make life perfect for everyone else. He doesn't force anything. Everyone who gives him their wishes does so willingly, in the hopes that he will grant it without requiring them to put in the work to achieve it themselves if it is something they could do on their own, or to have a chance of something impossible coming true if their dream is actually impossible. The fact that he doesn't grant them all and only grants the ones that help people as a whole, that's not a bad thing. Honestly, in any other movie, Magnifico would by far be the hero, or the heroic mentor who guides the protagonist along their way like Merlin. But this movie wants to convince you that he's wrong, and Asha, the whiny brat who wants her way, is the hero, so insert evil book and dark magic here. When the star shows up and starts doing incredibly annoying things like making the toy advertisement, Ash's sidekick Goat, talk, and disrupting the peaceful lives everyone has, Magnifico is clearly terrified that this is the start of the end for Rosas. He's scared that he's about to lose everything all over again. A perfectly reasonable fear from someone who's been through the kind of trauma he has. He knows that there's someone else out there using magic, but he doesn't know who or what they want to accomplish. If they're a rival to him, they could destroy Rosas and the peaceful lives he's given everyone who lives there. They could turn it into a wasteland, like the one he fled from all those years ago. He doesn't know where it came from or what its intentions are. Let's say that you came from a world that was full of destruction, pain, and death. Hard to imagine, I know. That you managed, through hard work, training, and intelligence, to create a safe haven for yourself and anyone else you could save. Somewhere that, by having absolute control, you could ensure would never face the kind of awful tragedies and dangers that the world outside suffered constantly that left scars on your very soul. Now, you've been leading that place for many years and everything is great. People are happy, well-fed, comfortable, and above all else, safe. They are safe to live their lives peacefully, to raise children who will never know the sound of screams and the smell of death all around them. Children who will grow up with full bellies and warm beds to sleep in every night. One of said lucky children, who has never faced hardship once in her life, comes to you for a chance to learn from you, to be guided to help others the way you have, though to a lesser extent, because let's be real, none of them are prepared to make the kind of sacrifices and go through what you did to earn your power. You haven't even said yes to her yet, and she's already demanding that you grant wishes for her and telling you that your way of doing things, the way that has kept your safe haven safe and functioning this whole time, is wrong, and she doesn't like it because it means she doesn't get what she wants. Obviously, she doesn't get the privilege of being your student now, and you send her home. Later on, suddenly things are turning upside down. There's someone else using powerful magic just willy-nilly all over the place. You don't know who, or how, or what their intentions are. You don't know if this budding magic user who just doesn't know what they're doing yet and can't control it, needs guidance, or if this is someone who is purposely trying to disrupt things, undermine your rule, and maybe even cause a war to break out and your safe haven to be destroyed, just like your old home was. Maybe that last one is a bit of a leap, but it's a risk you're not willing to take. You go to ask your people for help to keep all of them safe. All you want is for them to tell you if they've seen something strange, so you can make sure their lives aren't about to be horribly disrupted or even ended. And what do? Demand more wishes from you. Greater luxuries. More. After everything you've done for them, everything you've given them, everything you had to do and endure so they could live the cushy lives they do, and they still demand more. This is what all your hard work has come to. An entire nation of people who have been given absolutely everything, and it's still not enough for them. After all the suffering you went through, they can't even be bothered to help you keep their own home safe. I can't blame him for getting a bit snippy about it. And even then, his worst threat is that whoever goes against him just won't get their wish. That's hardly a threat at all, but everyone acts like it's the act of a tyrant, and not someone who is at the end of his rope just trying to hold it all together for their sakes. With his power, he could probably kick them all off Rosas entirely, or just leave and take his castle with him and use his magic to provide himself whatever he wants without any of them. But he chose to try and help as many as he could, and this is thanks he gets. Out of fear and desperation to keep his people safe, and the frustration of knowing that no one is going to help him do that, he turns to the book, which possesses him, making the cruel actions that come afterwards the actions of the spirit in the book, not him. No one, not even his own wife, seemed to care about that, or about what he's been through, or what he's afraid of losing. He's kept literally everyone safe and happy on the island this whole time, given them everything. But for them, that's not enough, because he's not giving them their every little wish and whim at every moment, and is making choices that they sometimes may not like in order to keep them all safe. They pull some holding hands and singing Deus Ex Magica with the star that shows up. He gets imprisoned forever, and Asha is given magic and labeled the fairy godmother, able to grant wishes. However, she's not just granting them willy-nilly, which is what they'd wanted Magnifico to do. She says she's going to try and make sure she grants good wishes, which is exactly what Magnifico was doing, but it's okay when she gets to be the arbiter of what's good and what isn't because... reasons? Even though she's just a kid who has never experienced any actual hardship and has proven to be an idiot several times over, so I'm sure that she's gonna get taken advantage of or grant the wrong wish, and Rosas will be a burning trash heap within a year, and that's why none of the other Disney movies, which all supposedly come after this one, as Asha is supposed to be the fairy godmother and basically the source of good magic in general that shows up in other movies, ever mention Rosas again. Heck, maybe granting too many wishes and destroying her home is why the fairy godmother doesn't show up in Cinderella, even when she's suffering through a good chunk of her childhood, entire adolescence, and part of her early adulthood. Maybe she chickened herself out of granting wishes in general, except something small like going to a party because she destroyed her own home because of it. The movie is awful. It tries every which way it can to point at nostalgia, like having Asha's useless friends resembling the Seven Dwarfs aesthetically. But it fails to capture any of the original magic and just gives you reminders that Disney was once a company that made art. Once a company that told stories. And they don't anymore. They don't take risks, they don't try anything new, and they don't create art anymore. All they do is regurgitate the same barely passable slop over and over and hope it gets enough people to pay that they can justify doing it again, instead of actually telling new stories or creating something new and amazing like they used to. The music is nothing to write home about either. They were written by pop artists rather than by the folks who write for Broadway-style musicals, and you can tell. The tunes are forgettable and generic in the way that any pop radio station song is. You hear it, it's okay, you forget that it exists as soon as the next song starts. There's nothing to hold you to it. The lyrics are repetitive word salad that has no meaning, as bland and safe as they can possibly say it. Nothing you'll remember past the credits. I've escorted kids to a few hikes and back, riding the bus with them to and from the schools to help keep an eye on them and all. Some of them would sing on the ride. I heard a few kids singing regular songs, a couple of old Disney songs like Be Our Guest, and in one case that made me a bit concerned, one kid singing the Doughy song from Poppy Playtime, which is absolutely not an appropriate game for a child that age to be playing, but not a single one sang anything from Wish, or any of the other recent Disney movies for that matter. Wish is basically everything that has become wrong with Disney in a nutshell. It's a shameless money grab with no originality to speak of, no creativity, with a botched message that, if anything, makes you root for the so-called villain. Asha is a spoiled brat who acts like her world is crumbling around her because she didn't get her way one time, gets rewarded for it. While Magnifico, who is the reason she has a safe place to live in the first place, gets punished for trying to be reasonable with his magic and not putting everyone's safety at risk to make a few people happier. They did try something sort of new with the painted CG look, but honestly, if you're going to try to make something look hand-drawn, just have it be hand-drawn. Stop with the pop music, it doesn't work, especially when you're going for a timeless fantasy aesthetic. It's painfully dated, forgetful, and doesn't have any staying power whatsoever. I guess they got upset with people complaining about the villains constantly being redeemed now, so they don't give Magnifico a redemption, when he's probably the only villain in their lineup that genuinely deserved one. He's not even really a villain. He's just someone who earned his power, was using it to help people, got frustrated and scared when there was a threat to the safe haven he'd created and no one wanted to help him without getting big rewards on top of everything else he already did for them. The hero was just an entitled brat having a tantrum because she didn't get her way. But because she's a pretty young girl who sings and has a doofy animal sidekick, we're supposed to take her side and be happy when she gets what she wants and takes power away from someone who actually earned it and was trying to use it wisely. It's sort of fitting that this is their grand Centennial movies. It epitomizes so much of what's wrong with the company now. They do nothing but prey on people's nostalgia and hope that they can put literally anything on the screen and people will watch it because it's got the Disney name attached to it. The Disney company has always had its problems, from the very moment it was founded. But in its early days, it took chances and told stories that they wanted to tell. They were innovative, daring, and wanted to create works of art that would last the test of time. So much passion went into the movies, and you can see that on the screen and hear it in every line and every song. Now, the movies they produce are basically nothing but checking off a list of tropes. Paint by numbers, copies of copies of copies, without a hint of creativity or originality in sight. Even when the story itself is a little bit different, everything about it is done as safely and repetitively as possible. As if they think that by saying or doing the same thing over and over, they'll manage to convince you that it's good and true. They're spitting on their own legacy in the hope of getting a few more bucks, and I think more and more people are waking up to it and getting quite sick of it. No one gets excited about a new Disney movie the way they used to. Most reactions to hearing that they're coming out with something new is, oh, another one? If Disney wants to recapture the magic they once had, they need to stop playing it safe. They need to take risks. Stop depending on nostalgia or on following a set of formulaic rules that's been done to death with a new coat of paint. They need to tell stories that they genuinely want to tell, with characters and art that they're actually passionate about. Almost everything that has been produced by the company recently feels like no one actually cared about it. They just slung it out there to make a few more bucks, and it's a really sad direction to see media that was specifically designed for storytelling being used so callously. Indie animation, thankfully, has started to pick up the slack in a lot of ways. These are stories made by people who have a story to tell, not just throwing whatever they can at the screen to hopefully make a few bucks. I'm hoping that this trend of indie animations gaining strength so that the people who make them can keep making them continues, and Disney and its imitators will quietly fade away as the world moves on to give new storytellers a chance. Thank you for joining me today. The chaos in the world doesn't seem to be settling down anytime soon, So now more than ever, it's important to remember to take care of yourselves and those around you. Take a break from doom scrolling, separate yourself from electronics entirely sometimes. Just give yourself space to breathe for a few moments. I know it's really hard to not get overwhelmed with all the things going wrong in the world that you can't do anything about. What's important, and what can help you out a lot, is to pick something you can do something about and fix it. It may not fix the world at large, but it can help at least a little. Picking up trash from a local park, helping somebody carry heavy groceries, volunteering at a shelter. Anything like this can be incredibly fulfilling, help your community, and help you. Be safe, stay hydrated, and I'll see you in the next one.